first and foremost, welcome and congratulations. Being part of the honors program at Hunter is a huge, huge accomplishment. These are very, very competitive programs. So we are very excited to welcome you to an event that is specifically for students just like you, for students who were selected for the fall 2021 class. So congratulations. I know we're not in the room. Usually I'd have you cheering for yourself. So for those of you who are sitting with your cameras off, get ready. We might do it at the end. My name is Irina. I'm an assistant director of admissions at Hunter College, and I'm very excited that you get to hear from students today and from the program director as well. I will say this, we are in meeting mode, so what that means is you can actually be on camera and audio with us. We want to meet you. Sounds crazy, but we actually miss students, so if you would like to join us on camera, so you can talk to us, we can talk to you. The goal of the program is really to give you a good overview of what the Scala program is all about, what the student experience in the program is like, and give you a chance to ask questions that you may have had going through the process and still kind of deciding, give you a chance to really hear from the students what they like about the program. But without further ado, oh, one more note, I'm so sorry. If you have any questions and you feel a little bit on the shy side, right, you can always unmute yourself and ask your questions live. But if you feel a little bit on the shy side, there's a little Q&A username that you see in the chat right now. You're welcome to send your questions there, and we will ask them live at the end of the session. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Mike Zimanski, who's going to run the program, and he is the director of the Daedalus Scholars program. So all yours.
All right. So hi, everybody. Good to see many of your names written in little black boxes on the screen, but that's really cool. Anyway, yes, I'm Mike Zimanski, and I am the coordinator, director, or whatever of the Daedalus program. And we're a pretty young program, but we're an exciting program. We're only in our 5th year right now. And I came over, I spent most of my career as a high school computer science teacher at Stuyvesant, where I spent a quarter century, but I came over to Hunter because one of the things that was really cool is Hunter always had this really strong computer science program, but people didn't know about it. Didn't think about it. And I'm like, wait, we got, Hunter's got this great computer science program, and they want me to come here to run this honors program and to connect us to the tech industry and links with Google and all these other companies, so that people can get a great education without spending $85,000 a year. And to me, that was really exciting. And, the program has just kind of grown year after year, and, it just keeps getting bigger and better. Actually, unfortunately, due to budget cuts, this next year it's getting a little smaller. So actually, all of you have offers to this program, and this was the hardest year to get a Daedalus offer because one, every year we get more and more applicants, and the applicants, your portfolios, your applications are just stronger and stronger. But due to CUNY's budget and Hunter's budget, we had to make fewer offers. So, again, congratulations to you on that. But anyway, let me just say a couple of things about Hunter Computer Science, and then I'm going to pass it off to Noam and the other students here. And Noam will go first. I'll explain that in a second. And then we'd like to open the floor and give you a lot of time to ask any questions you might have. So I've just got a couple of slides to share. Oh no, I can't share. Irina, could you give me share access?
You all said, give it a try.
All right, we're in business. These are just some slides that I use in my presentations when I go around and talk about computer science. And the truth is, most good programs, the core computer science is going to be mostly the same in terms of the courses. You're going to take a programming course, Computer Science 1. You're going to take a data structures course, an algorithms course. In fact, if you look at the curriculum for our algorithms course and Carnegie Mellon's algorithms course, and I usually show this.
Listen to him.
Say again? If you look at our curriculum for our
How are you doing,
algorithms
Mr. Brown?
course,
That's wonderful. How are you?
I'm fine. Nah.
and we're just gonna have
I
to
gotta worry about
I'm sorry
college.
to interrupt everyone. If I can have you mute yourself.
So I'm between two choices, Hunter or at Buffalo. So Buffalo is more expensive, right?
Yo,
Hunter
if you're
is
talking to
hold on,
Mr.
hold
Brown,
for
you're
me at least.
unmuted. If you're talking to Mr. Brown, mute yourself.
But give me a minute.
Yep. Yeah. Could yeah. So if
Wait, Mike, now you're muted.
All right, I think we're in business now. Okay, so yeah, no, if you do have a question, absolutely unmute yourself, raise your hand using the Zoom hand thing, put it in the chat, whichever way you're most comfortable, absolutely do that. But if you're not addressing the group, just make sure you're muted so we don't get anything stray side conversations or feedback or stuff. So as I was saying, you're going to take these courses regardless of where you go. And, if you look at our algorithms curriculum, for example, and or our algorithms curriculum, and you look at the curriculum for Carnegie Mellon, which is reputed to be #1, week for week, it's the same thing. It's the same topics, the same textbooks, the same everything. And I did that analysis. I do that analysis every year. And so you're going to get the same core CS wherever. The key, though, is where are you going to get the special extras? And that's where Hunter really, I think we bring extra stuff to the table. So this is just stuff you've been bombarded with on Hunter. It's off the website. But in terms of computer science, we've got one of the fastest growing computer science programs anywhere. We've hired, I think, 5 new full-time faculty members since I've been at Hunter, and once the budget clears up and the state releases more money for us, we're in the process of hiring 2 or 3 more. That's tremendous. Hunter College's president has been a huge supporter of computer science. We didn't have anybody who did a couple of years ago, some of the modern, AI stuff. And so she's like, hire somebody. And we just hired somebody this year, who's new into computer science, who's an AI specialist to add to our existing AI person. We needed somebody a few years ago who was doing software engineering as their specialty. So we hired somebody for that. So we're putting a lot of resources into computer science. And the other one I want to highlight down here, or the 2 down here, is we have a very active community when we're on campus. We'll hopefully be back on campus next year. But before we went out for COVID, there would be regular meetings of the ACM chapter, the Women in Computing chapter, having guest speakers, et cetera. And the other big new thing we have is we just finished a program called CUNY 2X, but now that's evolved into our internship partnership office. And we actually created an office at Hunter specifically set up to bring all of our computer science students opportunities for internships, interview preparation, how to get your portfolio together, to get all of you to where you want to go to. And that's just regular Hunter CS. That's not even the Daedalus highlights. And you've seen this before because I keep sending this out and it's on our website. And but you get a number of specials that you just aren't going to get anywhere else. You're going to have all the CS you learn everywhere else, but you're going to take special classes with me in your first year where you learn about software engineering. So a couple of weeks ago in one of my classes, we did a code review. That's critical, but you don't normally learn that in college. We spend time talking about test-driven development. That's critical for you to get a job. You don't normally learn that in college. You just have to learn that on your own, but we do that. We've got partnerships with Google. I've mentioned before that we have every second year Daedalus student who wants one gets a mentor from Google. We have a partnership with Yext. We didn't start it yet, but right before COVID, we had to set up a partnership with Cockroach Labs databases. So we're partnering with all sorts of companies around the city to make it the best opportunity for you. Just an example of this, I got an email from one of my students about a month ago, and she's like, well, I'm loving the computer science, but I kind of want to maybe go into project management in tech, and I don't know what that's all about. And so I just reached out to our contacts and I put her in touch with a project manager at Facebook, at Google, and at a startup. And now she's meeting with these 3 people, getting mentorship from them and learning all about what project management is. So these are the types of things that you get in the Daedalus program that you really don't get anywhere else in any computer science program in the country, regardless of New York or not New York. So I'd love to, I want to pass this off to, first to Noam. And Noam was one of our first Daedalus students. He was in the first cohort. So he actually graduated. I don't say actually as it was a surprise. I mean, he graduated because he did his time and now he's working in the field. And so I wanted to, I'm really happy that he's here because he can give you a little bit of like how we started, how we've grown, and some of the things he's seen, because he's one of our elder statespeople. And that way we can be done with Noam and he can get back to work. He's also welcome to stay to answer questions as well. And then I'll pass it off to our other students, Layla, Moody, and Luca, to give you a little bit of their perspective. So Noam, it's all yours.
Sounds good. Hello, everybody. My name is Noam, as Mike said. So I was part of the first cohort, the Daedalus cohort, and I graduated this past spring. And I'm currently working as a software engineer at Bluecore, which is a startup in New York. And I think that even, as Mike was saying, I can give some context on where things started to where they are today. I think even though that I was part of the first cohort and things were, we were figuring it out as we were going, and by we, I really mean Mike. Mike worked incredibly quickly to create opportunities for us that have since been formalized. So our first year, we had venture capitalists come speak with the cohort. We had people who past students of Mike's to speak about what it's like to be a software engineer in the field. We had a dinner one of the nights at Yext with tech leaders across the industry. There were CTOs there were venture capitalists, there were principal engineers. And we just had a lot of exposure to people who were in the industry and got to learn about what's actually happening in New York, which is a really nice part about being at Hunter, where you can actually speak to people who are doing things in the city. And I think one of the stories that really embodies like who Mike is and what the Daedalus program is all about is a few years ago, Mike introduced us to the New York Tech Meetup. He got us all free tickets to go, and I really enjoyed it. So I went again, and there was an amazing presenter who, like in real time, was hacking into different cameras on. He brought like a computer and a office phone, and in real time he was like hacking into it and showing how his software protects from those hacks. And I emailed Mike. I was like, Mike, you got to see this talk. Like, it was unbelievable. And he was like, oh, he's my student. He was my student at Stein. Like, we should have a workshop with him. And sure enough, the next semester we had a workshop where about a dozen of us went to. It's called the Red Balloon Security. You can look it up. They're really geeky cybersecurity people. And we were all given a office phone, which is what they send to people who are interviewing. And we learned how the interview works, which is we like hacked through the phone, and at each harder step of the hack, they showed you like you achieved level 1 as if it was a game. So it was really awesome. This kind of experience that would have been that was a cool talk turned into a learning opportunity for us. And now all of those things are now formalized, as Mike was saying before, all those partnerships, which is really great. Mike, is there anything else you want me to cover?
No, I just wanted to give you a little, give a little bit of your experience and feedback, and I think that's I think that's a good perspective for the students. So why don't we go to any I guess I'm just gonna go in the order that I see you on my screen. So Layla.
Okay, so my name is Layla. I'm a current freshman in Daedalus. For high school, I went to Brooklyn Technical High School, and personally, my favorite thing about Daedalus is the community, because I've met a bunch of my upperclassmen through like internships, and they're like TAing my classes, and Mr. Zimanski had some of them mentor us also. And they've all just been super kind, super helpful, especially with picking my classes and giving me tips for like applying to internships and stuff. And of course, I also really like my class because they always are so the projects and all the homework assignments, and they answer any questions I have.
Cool, thanks. And that's actually something that I think all of the scholar programs at Hunter really try to do, is connect the various years. And so at Daedalus, we do it in our first year students. we try to connect with our third year students. Then Layla, Moody, and Luca, when they're in the second year, they're going to get the mentoring from Google. And then when they become third year students, they're going to give back by mentoring the incomings. So let's go over to Moody.
Hey everyone, my name is Mudir Rahman. I graduated from Stuyvesant High School last year, and I came to here Hunter for Daedalus. Michael Zimanski, Professor Zimanski, he was a teacher at Sty right before I came to the school, right? So my CS teachers from back then would name drop him really often, right? And they would say wild things about him. You know, apparently his April Fool's jokes were legendary. I don't know that. I wasn't there. But I came to Daedalus because I just really wanted to see what Michael Zimanski was like. And truth be told, it's incredible. You know, he's a great teacher. And I'd recommend Daedalus just for the fact you get to be in a lecture with him. We've covered a lot of really interesting topics for all of our classes so far, actually, right? A lot of things you don't cover typically in the non-Daedalus Hunters Computer Science. And what I've also been really enjoying is the priority registration, right? Where you get to choose whatever classes you want, and you get to pick exactly when you take those classes and which professors you take them with. In a lot of other colleges, you kind of have to like register at a specific time, or you don't get the professor that you want, or like some class fills up too quickly and kind of ruins your plan, right? But I've been able to like actually plan out for the long-term future because I'm banking on priority registration, right? So that I know what classes I'm going to take in the future and plan accordingly. So that's been a real nice sort of security, sort of a comfort thing. Anything else? Yeah, I think those are the big reasons why I've been really enjoying Daedalus.
And that, Dan, thanks, Moody. And that priority registration is just, it doesn't sound like much, but it's a big deal because it really just takes a load off your mind. It's like, I know that I'm going to be able to register classes before like most of the college, and I can get to what I need to get to where I want to go. So that's and I'm glad I didn't even think about that. And Moody mentioned it before we all hopped on. And I'm like, yeah, that is a big deal. So Luca, you're on.
All right. What's up? I'm Luca. I also went to tech with Layla. I don't think we knew each other. Tech's a big school. There's 6,000 kids. I was in the robotics major too. So I was a little niche coming into a computer science curriculum. But I think one of my favorite parts about Daedalus so far is that, and this isn't sold, you won't actually hear this anywhere, but the administration actually does a pretty good job at keeping you with your classmates. Like my first semester, me and Moody had like 4 out of 5 classes together. Now we have 2 out of 5 classes together now. So it's like the cohort that you're going to come in with isn't just going to be your computer science cohort. It's going to be really your Hunter cohort. These are going to be kids that you're going to take all sorts of different classes with and really learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, which is just, you know, it's extremely helpful when you need to problem solve with each other, group work, all that kind of stuff. And I think the other thing that's really important is that the teachers themselves, the professors themselves will actually end up kind of learning what it's like to teach computer science students. We, our English 120 class, we spent time reading articles on algorithms because like 90% of the class were Daedalus students, and Dr. Hightower, who taught the class, understood this. She had been teaching us for like 8 years already. So you get this like really interesting experience where this was not a normal English class. This was an English class made for the computer science students, and that, you know, will always have a lot of value. You get to learn a lot more, and you get to look at computer science in a lot of different ways.
Cool. That's awesome. And that's also something that I hadn't thought about, where it's really, which is why it's so great that we have students here. And that's really the advisors in the Daedalus cohort, and they're not here. They're, you know, they're again full-time Hunter employees, and you get a dedicated advisor, and so they're recommending here's what your schedule should look like, but they're not restricting, so you don't have to take that course with all the other cohort, but they're trying to set you up for success. And then, of course, as you specialize later in the year, you'll be taking different electives, et cetera. But that's really another thing that, again, I hadn't thought about. And that's really big because it helps, again, build a community, which is hard at any college. So really.
Yeah, in addition to that point, if I might jump in real quick, right?
Please.
There's also a certain amount of like clout that comes in when you're in Daedalus, right? Because of the fact that I'm taking CS 235 and 150, same as Lucas at the same time, right? And typically, you're not really supposed to take those two classes at the same time, right? And the paperwork you gotta fill out, and like department heads you gotta talk to, and people to approve of you, right? But when you're in Daedalus, I just register and just let me take the classes, you know? And it was a really nice, really just peaceful experience, you know, that I can like take classes that I think are good for me, and I don't, and then like the school trusts me to have that kind of like leniency on me as a student.
Well, that was actually, this happened this year and last year, where I had a couple of students who really wanted to come in not just advanced standing, but super advanced standing, and the other professors really worked with me and with the student. And in one case, we all mutually decided, including the student. I spoke to the professors in question, but before we went further, the student said to me, it's like, you know, now that after I looked at this, I think I shouldn't get that far advanced, and it worked for him. And then the other student, we did advance because that was right for that student. So that's really the other thing that we do try to do. So so you've heard a little bit from a few students, you know, a graduate, current students, myself, but we'd love to open up the floor to questions. Any questions, thoughts, concerns, anything you'd like to hear about. You know, you can throw them into the chat, you can unmute yourself, and just if multiple people unmute at the same time, we'll have to kind of manage that. But yeah, let's throw the floor open to the floor to anything that
Professor Zimanski, I've gotten a few questions in the chat actually from students that came in. Do you mind if I start with those?
Absolutely.
So one of the first questions that students are asking, actually a few students have asked this, is do you need to have prior coding experience at all in order to join the program?
No, you don't.
No. The Hunter sets it up really well. You know, going from 127 upwards, really go. The very first CS class you take, right? If you don't have any prior experience, is CS 127, right? And it's a really big, diverse class, right? Where you go over a little bit of everything. There are even some like a low-level assembly programming in there as well, just for fun, I imagine. No prior experience needed. It sets you up really well. Yeah.
And actually what we've done in the last few years is I've split the Daedalus group based on experience, because some of you will probably come in with very limited experience. Your high school didn't offer very much, and some of you will come in with a lot of experience. And so we may do that again. Or we may keep you all as a group, and you'll just take the appropriate computer science class with the other professors, and we're going to design a special experience that's just for the Daedalus students, and it'll be all of you together. So whatever level you come in at, we're going to have the right things for you.
I think it's worth mentioning that the Daedalus program and in general scholar programs tend to be sort of a small family community among the bigger population. So you have the ability to kind of customize towards different groups within that smaller community already, which is phenomenal for me personally. Professor Zimanski, there's a question for you directly. Students have heard Moody's comments saying that you have a reputation. They're asking if you're planning to staying with the program for a while, if you're planning to grow the program, or what are the plans overall?
Yeah, no, I'm planning to stay at the program. I have no plans on leaving. I'm not a college coach who got a better offer somewhere. No, I do two basic things at Hunter. One is the Daedalus program, and the other is the teacher education, preparing computer science teachers for K-12. And I've got unfinished business in both of them, and both of those programs are growing. And actually, the bigger concern is I want to bring people in to work with me. I mean, you will all be in my classes next year, but I'm not going anywhere for a while. Yeah, well, I mean, unless Hunter gets tired of me, but that's another story. But yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere.
No, at this point, only growth. That's what we're shooting for. Another question from a student, and this one is actually for Layla. Layla, since you're the only girl in the room, students are asking, how is the community in the computer science program in general and in the Scholar program as well? Do you feel like there's a lot of girls to go around? Is there support? How does that all feel? You gotta unmute yourself, Layla.
Okay. So I think there's about 5 of my female classmates I've met so far, but that's mostly because of COVID. But they've been pretty supportive. Just yesterday night, I was helping one of my other classmates with her project, and overall, we just help each other out. And my mentor and one of this other upperclassmen that I met in my internship, they're both super helpful also, and they both happen to be female. So yeah, I don't think there's, because I know there's like concerns because there's like not a lot of women in tech, right? So even in high school, I was like one of the only girls in my classes, and that was like pretty bad. But in the Daedalus like cohort, there's like more of us, so it feels a lot better for me.
No, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yep.
perfect. Thank you so much.
To give a
For-
little bit more context on this, I obviously I have no idea what next year's cohort is going to look like because we don't know. But usually we have about 1/3 of the cohort are women, which is not where we should be. We should be at the Hunter percents, but we're also actually more balanced than the national numbers, which is a step in the right direction. And Hunter's also been very proactive at being a welcoming community. One of the most active on-campus groups is the Women in Computing group. The incoming class hasn't seen much about that because, you know, COVID, but that's the group that runs more events and more activities for computer science than pretty much anyone else. And they're open to everybody, but that's really one of the most active groups we have. So Hunter has been very proactive to make computer science accessible and available and feel like a family to all. And just one more thing on Daedalus for that, again, I forget about this year, but I was actually on campus this morning, and just last year, just before, you know, just like a few months before COVID, we finally got our lounge, you know, a room for us to just hang out right next to my office. And so that's also part of the building community where at least before we left out, a lot of the Daedalus students would just kind of hang out on the 10th floor in that room, and I would be right there, they would be right there, you know, guys, girls, everybody. And that was just a really cool part of building the community.
Awesome. A student is asking also, is there an opportunity for students who are studying computer science to major or minor in something else?
Yeah, the Daedalus are for people who are going to major or minor in computer science. And if you're not going to do that, you do not want this program. And I'm telling you right up front, if you want to major, like a single major in something else, let us know, because we want to direct you to the Scholars program that makes sense for you. However, if you're going to major or minor in computer science and you also want to major in something else, yeah, we have a number of students who are double majors. We've had multiple students who are computer science and in the Chinese flagship program, which is one of the most rigorous programs at Hunter, you know, and they did splendidly. I think we've had a pre-med or two. That's tricky to balance the courses because of the requirements, but it can be done. But we've got a lot of students who've double majored, so you can absolutely do that.
Thank you. Another set of questions is concerning sort of the internships. All of you, even Layla and a few of you guys that were talking, Luca, before, mentioned some sort of an internship portion to this whole program. And you mentioned also that there's a lease and there's a whole office that helps them out. How early can students start out with their internship?
As early as you can get them. You know, if you're coming in with no experience, very little experience, to be honest with you, you're not going to have that many opportunities. But if you're coming in with strong experience, and I'll pass this off to you know, any of the students to add on to this, but if you're coming in with a data structures knowledge, then you're ready to do a technical interview, and we'll help you along the way. You know, we'll connect you with opportunities, we'll introduce you to people, you know, yeah, it's just all based on what background you have coming in, and if you don't have it, how quickly you acquire it. A typical student will start, who's coming in with, I'll say, the average CS background. For Daedalus, we'll be interviewing in their sophomore year. usually because by the time they get close to the ability or knowledge, it's at the end of the freshman year when the internship cycle has ended. But then again, I always have people who start in the freshman year as well. So Luca, Moody, Layla, anyone have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Luca.
I would. I mean, internships, yeah, like it's, you'll probably aim for some around the summer. I think our cohort right now actually has a significant advantage because Layla has been putting in a crazy amount of work. She has like the best spreadsheet I've ever seen of all the internships. She's got all the deadlines, all what they're looking for. I've literally just been running myself down her spreadsheet, like applying to all these internships. And there's a lot of them that I actually feel pretty confident about. I think the other thing is, Z himself has people who pass along opportunities. So you almost get a little bit of a boost there when you're like, most recently that I can remember that I applied to, there was like a summer TA position for like helping some like middle schoolers learn some like higher level math and computer science. And he always, you can always tell us, he's like, oh, this was a friend of mine that did this. So when you apply, you're like, hey, I'm one of Z's kids. You actually probably have a better chance along with a lot of the curriculum that you're bringing in.
Also, just for context, the students, the first year students here are all in the 235 class. They're in that data structures class now, which is kind of the requisite class for a technical, to get through the technical interview. So the other Daedalus class are not quite there yet in terms of their background. But yes, so just wanted you all to know that.
Yeah, I was in the cohort of crew who is not in the, I had no computer science backgrounds pre-Hunter. And to Mike's point, freshman year, it is definitely harder to get an internship without that background. There's some programs that like Google and Facebook have, but they're really targeting like people who had a lot of experience in high school and just happen to be freshmen right now. That didn't really matter that much. Your sophomore year matters and your junior year really matters. There's another one of my classmates, he was in a similar boat. He was actually in the nursing honors cohort in the beginning, and he currently works at Google and had a phenomenal experience at Hunter, getting internship after internship until he landed his full-time role at Google. So whether you're coming in with a ton of experience or no experience, the program is designed for you to get a comprehensive learning and get that job.
I think you just answered like 6 of the questions that came in. Students are asking, how did you actually get to, since you're sort of past all of this already, how did you find the job that you're doing now?
Sure. Sorry, let me mute my phone. My phone just ringing. Yeah, I think like Lucas said, Mike definitely emailed us a bunch about jobs. Mike referenced this in the beginning that we had CUNY 2X for a while at Hunter, which was always intended to be a temporary program to boost Hunter, and that was my first technical internship. Was CUNY 2X coordinated like 25 internships for Hunter students. It was I worked at a startup. Again, the startups were chosen by Mike, who used his network to make sure that they were actually going to be good internships and not just you get to put on your resume that you worked as an intern somewhere, but actually get meaningful experience. So I worked for one of Mike's students from 20 years ago, who was great. And then I continued part-time for them for like 6 months after that. And then I got this job. Yeah, I think that like, your Hunter can give you all the resources that you need, but you have to actually do the work yourself. So I'm currently, I guess my computer is propped up on cracking the coding interview, which fortunately I don't have to read right now. But you have to do the work to prepare for the interviews. You have to do the work to apply to not just the programs that Hunter has, but elsewhere. And whether it's via Mike or the what are they called? Guidance counselors, I guess. I forgot their names are right now. What's that? Career counselors. Yeah. Then you'll get even more options, and you're in New York City, so there's plenty of jobs in tech. I think Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have more jobs in tech than San Francisco now.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think what Noam said is important, and that's what one of the things that we look for before we made you the offers is we want people who are going to be part of our community, because it's all doing the work together. And still, like I said, I was on campus today, so I go through our lounge to get to my office, and on the board are still notes from practice problems because the day before we went out from COVID, a bunch of students were in there practicing interview problems because they know that you have to put in that time, no matter how smart you are, no matter how many A's you have on your transcript. A lot of the process of getting the desirable internships come down to solving a certain type of problem that you can only be good at by practicing.
Yeah, in addition to the freshman internships, right? Don't feel disappointed if you don't cop a position your freshman year, because getting something like that your freshman year is the exception, not the norm. All right. Coming from someone who's had a very dry recruitment season, right? Because I'm a freshman, I've been applying to internships too, right? I've just been doing a lot of contract jobs lately, right? Working with people in my community, but hopefully it'll be better sophomore year, but definitely, most positions out there are intended for juniors and seniors. So if you apply as a freshman, you have to compete against juniors and seniors, and they get like huge preference over freshmen to begin with. And the few that there are specifically for freshmen are usually like very tough to get into. I had a 2-week 6-hour interview with 2 Sigma and a rejection. It was terrible.
Oh man, I'm talking to 2 Sigma on Monday. I'm have to yell at Ian about that. But that's
Wait,
actually
Um,
Ian Friedman.
I think he was one of my interviewers. Wait.
Okay, look that up.
That's
Well, I mean, yeah. But to say, I was talking to, I got an email from a Hunter student a couple of years ago, and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm not." I sent out resumes to 86 companies, and I only heard back from 12 of them, and 8 of those were rejections. What's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? And I told him about my daughter, who didn't go to Hunter, but is a software engineer, and she's a software engineer at Facebook, and how much crying was happening in her sophomore year, because that's the way it is in tech, which is horrible. But this student who ended up sending out 86 resumes, getting 12 responses and only 4 screenings, that's about par for the course. And he didn't get anything from that cycle. And then he sent out for the next cycle, and we connected him with some companies to interview, and he got an internship there. And long story short, he ended up with his dream job at Apple, and he loved it. And but that's the way. It's unfortunately, this is the way of the industry, where even if you're a top student, this guy Dan, super smart, super able, but that's the way it works. But we do help you with the support, and as Moody said, it can be rough at starting, but we'll help you get to where you want to go.
And to add on, like what Moody said, is definitely don't feel too disappointed if you don't get any internships freshman year or even sophomore year, honestly, because it's just rough. It's really a numbers game, and some of it is luck based, because even though you have the experience, it could depend on like how the interviewer is feeling that day and just a bunch of other factors. And personally, I've been pretty lucky this internship season, because last winter I interned at Bloomberg through the Breakthrough Tech program, which Elise actually connected me to, because she sent everyone an email and she was like, "Oh, I think you would be good for this." And so I applied, and I got matched to Bloomberg, and there were a bunch of other companies that you could have gotten matched to. And at that time, I didn't really have too much experience. I was taking 135, and there wasn't technical interviews for that, but later on during my Bloomberg internship back in January, I was doing my technical interviews for Google Step, and I actually ended up getting an offer for Google Step. So I'll be interning at Google during the summer.
Awesome.
And so 135 prepared me pretty well for that, because I did end up interviewing with C++, and 135 was like my introduction to C++, even though I already had jobs prior. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have one brave soul who wants to ask a question live, is willing to ask a question live.
Yay.
It's one of the two
Woohoo.
brave souls that's on camera with us. So Christopher, they're all yours. I think it's a question for the students, right?
Hello, my name is Christopher. I'm from Mary Hill Academy, like a small school. One of my questions for the students is like, what is your favorite project and like, what stands out to you with the projects? Like, do you collaborate? Do you do it solo? Like, what is the feel of doing projects with everyone in the Daedalus program?
Like personal projects or class
Like,
projects?
projects like you might be assigned to class or personal projects you might have done.
They're definitely kind of engaging. So I'm speaking, so I talk to a lot of people all over the school, right? Including people taking 235 right now, right? So I try to help them out, try to talk to them about what's like taking them, right? And with taking labs in 235 with someone who's not, I think Professor Gennady is teaching it this semester, right? They're very kind of cut and dry, you know, they're all made to be easily gradable by computer, right? So in normal 235, you just submit your code to a grade scope and then the computer compiles and automatically tests all your code, right? So it's very kind of like specific, very strict. You kind of have to like confine within the very specific specifications of the program, you know, and more cut and dry. Oh, whereas doing labs with Professor Zimanski, right? There's a lot of room for experimentation, a lot of room for kind of prodding around, poking around, and doing like just being more free in a way when you're all working in with Daedalus projects.
The to give you just the assignment that they're working on right now, which is due tomorrow morning, actually, I think due tomorrow morning, it involves they have to analyze, they have to figure out the structure of a maze using a debugger. Like they have to analyze the memory within the program and just discover it. So it's a very different type of assignment. The other thing that I don't think this is really something that we have more. Did any of you do Codefest this year?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I did Advent.
And we do encourage them to do competitions and events. And one of the big events we have is Hunter Codefest, which is it's a hunter event during the winter period, like after finals and before the spring starts, where students get together and work on their own group projects. And you know, over the course of a month, to build a portfolio piece, to get, you know, to work with other people, et cetera. And then at the end, we basically show it off. And this year it was done remote. The year before we had it at Google. It's Google sponsors this with us, one of the many exclusives that we have with Google. So last year, not this past year, but the year before, we were all in Google. We had like 30 Googlers, and they would go around from table to table, and each group would do like a 2-minute pitch on their project and then get feedback from the Googlers. And then they would get like 7 cycles of that. We did it this year. Unfortunately, it had to be remote, so we didn't get all the free food and the swag, but it was still kind of cool. But that's another big event where people have an opportunity to work on projects together outside of their class. And that was actually started because some of the first and second year Daedalus cohorts were like, we got to have more opportunities to work on group projects together. And this became, you know, and we started out with 10 people doing it. And now this past year, we had like 70 people doing it.
That's awesome. Luca, do you want to answer Christopher's question too? If you have a favorite project that you worked on?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say it is the one that we're working on right now, or just kind of the same. So for your 235 class, it's taught entirely by Z. You don't have, with 135, Z will just teach you your recitation class, which is like a smaller, you meet once a week. But now we're meeting with Z twice a week. So we've been dealing a lot with like memory problems and stuff like that, and solving mazes that will actually, you can watch them, like they will solve on your screen based on the algorithm that you write for it. And then the one thing I wanted to touch on that didn't is you were asking, like, can you work with each other on projects? Absolutely you can, but you just need to make sure that you're crediting the people that you work with. You can't just, you know, rip code off people and pass it off as your own, obviously. But yeah, group work is entirely encouraged. A lot of these problems can get tricky. So it's good to, you know, you match up with people, and like, you know, it's a community. You'll learn who's strong in what areas. You'll be able to form groups that can really like efficiently tackle these kinds of problems. And like we do a lot of peer review too. So you spend a lot of time like learning how other people code, which can become really interesting.
Thank you, Luca. We got another brave soul, again, with the second of the camera's bravest. Matthew, they're all yours. What is your question?
So, I mean, I had two questions, but you guys actually just tackled the group work question that I had. The next question, I know that, you guys have been not exactly living the whole college experience because COVID, but dorming, right? You guys dorm, I'm pretty sure you guys get dorm first year. And if any of you guys have taken up on that offer, I want to know what you guys thought about the just dorms overall.
Actually, I'm friends with Blake, the RA at Brookfield, right? And we were talking about dorming a while back, and I've seen the building. It's actually it's pretty nice, actually, right? For New York City, incredible value. All right, like you will not find like better priced housing, right, in New York City. And while it may not be right a 5-star luxury suite, right, it's clean, it's quiet. Hunter isn't a party school. We don't really do have like loud like things going on even in our dorms. But there's still like a sense of community there. And I think it strikes a really good balance between community and having some like peace and quiet around.
I think, Layla, Luca, did you guys live on campus by any chance? No?
No.
Totally okay. I just wanna, I'm never gonna tell you my age, but back in the day, I lived on campus, right? So many moons ago. And personally, I think that having a housing experience, especially in the heart of New York City, is an incredible opportunity. So just as somebody who's again done this many moons ago, life is obviously different, right? Like life has changed, but it kind of changes you to a point where like you learn a little bit more about yourself by being on your own. So yes, it's not necessarily you're entirely on your own. You have resident advisors who are going to be with you. You have residence directors who are in the building. So there's a lot of support for you. You're not really on your own, but it's still, you kind of have to make decisions on your own. And that teaches you a great deal, especially in your first sort of year at Hunter. Having that housing option also that first year gives you a chance to practice and do things that you may never have done, right? So if you get that internship that's between classes, because you're in New York City, you could potentially stop home, drop stuff off, go to the internship. Like it gives you a lot more flexibility than you would have otherwise, where you have to commute for a long time. It also gives you a chance to do a lot of events in New York City. This sounds silly, but computer science is not the only thing in the world, right? So when you're studying science and you're doing math and you're doing computers all day, it might be actually nice to go see a Broadway show or go to a nice cafe restaurant. Life outside of the academics, I think that's where the residence life component is really going to give you a true college experience. So even in the COVID times, believe it or not, we have our Brookdale campus open right now. We have residents on campus. They're all single rooms, so your safety sort of is still number one priority, but they still get the chance to like do New York City things, still be a community, and still have like that college experience, even in the non-really college experience here. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah, thank you.
And also just more information on that is I didn't ask this year because COVID, so I didn't see the point. But it seems that over half of the Daedalus students usually take the dorm. Just from like in class, like, oh, how many of you are dorming? That type of thing, and you raise your hands. So it does seem to be a popular option. And what Irina said is also really important. There's so much that to offer in the city. Like Hunter being on where it is. We're not very far off from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which and which normally is just pay what you want, but I think our arts office gives free tickets for like all of these museums and events and whatever, and that's just something that because you're going to be because again we are gonna like even though the fall is very up in the question, I'm pretty sure we're gonna all be on campus by the spring. That's just me, that's not official, that's me projecting. That these are things that and then particularly if you're dorming, you can enjoy all of these parts of the city, and that like when I went to college 100 years ago, I went to NYU, which is crazy expensive now, which is why I'm a big Hunter fan now, and I'm at Hunter. But I lived in the dorm, so even though I was close to home, so it was like the best of all worlds, and it was a really great next step for me. So I definitely think it is like I would certainly encourage it.
I have a few questions that came in that are talking a little bit about logistics, and then a few questions that are a little more about student life. So a question came in for Luca, actually. Students are asking, how do you feel sort of how is it being part of a small Daedalus family in a larger Hunter community of 17,000 undergrads?
Obviously with COVID right now, I haven't really had the full, like it hasn't hit me yet that like, oh, I'm part of this big college community yet. Although I did come from Brooklyn Tech and that had 6,000 kids in it. So I'm sure it's not going to feel too different for me, but I feel like I really do cherish the Daedalus community right now. It really is like I have a lot of friends in it. It's really where I'm already making my connections. And obviously, like I said, like me and Moody have had like 7 classes together already. It's almost getting to the point where it's too much. It's like, hey, I should probably meet some new people soon. But it's good, right? Because I know now, like I've already learned enough about Moody. I know what he's going to be typing in chat. When our 150 class, he's always either cracking jokes or making fun of the professor. Not making fun in a bad way. Eric's a cool guy. He gets it. He likes it. But yeah, I feel like, the Daedalus community is something I had to fight to get into personally. I was waitlisted. Like, I'm not afraid to say that. And I think I feel like I'm very lucky every day that I was able to get in, and it's just I'm very excited to end up being here in person and meeting everyone.
Thank you so much. Mike, a few questions for you. One question is, what do you think makes the Daedalus community stand out, or just the computer science program in general at Hunter make it stand out from any other school?
I always think of, I forget who said this, but they were interviewing, some newscasters were interviewing a baseball manager who, his team had won the World Series the year before or something like that. Or he may have had like a lot of success in the past. And it's like, so coach, like, what do you think really makes a great manager or a great coach? And it's like, well, it's easy. Great players. And I think that's really it is, it's all about the students and the community that the students make. Hunter can make all of these opportunities, and they do, and Hunter as a whole does, I as an individual try to, but it's about the community taking part in it. So it's about when we're in person, being on that 10th floor, in that lounge and working on interesting projects and talking about cool things, both CS and not CS, other stuff also. It's about like when Noam said, hey, I saw this really cool thing, which then, okay, so I was able to make the connection, but then a bunch of Daedalus students embraced it and we all went in there and we made it a thing. Or Codefest that started with an idea of a student. It's like this was Leo was the student, and Leo was like, we need more opportunities for people to put together projects. And it began as an idea, and then we did it the first time through, and it was like 10, 15 students were involved, and then 40 students were involved, and now 75 students are involved. And it's about that community. So I think that's really what makes it, we're bringing special opportunities to the table, like the Google mentoring, like the Red Balloon Security, like YEX, like Cockroach Labs. I just got an email from the guy who founded Motivate, the City Bike program, and he wants to do more with us now that COVID is starting to abate. But it's up to the students to buy into that and say, we're part of this community. And I think we've managed to do that. And it's funny that I'll use Google as an example of this. 5 years ago, when I first came to Hunter, Google didn't recruit at Hunter and they didn't recruit at CUNY. And I was talking to the person who was in charge of outreach, college outreach at Google, and he said, "Oh, I'm making this special program for CUNY students to help them get up to speed." I'm like, "That's great. Tell me about it." He's like, "Oh, Hunter's not allowed." And I'm like, "Why isn't Hunter allowed?" Because we already know Hunter. You're getting plenty of you're getting as many internships as any other college in the country. So it's about the community then buying into that and doing what we all want us to do, and just basically, like putting themselves on the map, and and I'm just like, amazed that I can be here for this ride. And yeah, I do think I bring something to the puzzle, but it's really about, it's about all of the students over the last 5 years buying into this and making this the community.
Thank you, Mike. A few of the students are asking a little more questions about the academic side of things and coding. They're asking what type of languages will they be learning in their first year, and if they don't have any previous experience, if they should start learning something on their own before they get there.
Okay, so yeah, the 127 class, which is our CS0 class, uses Python. And then our core language is C++. So that's what you'll do for the main CS classes. But then depending on the other classes that you take, you'll learn other languages. So, some will use Python. The first AI course, you'll be exposed to Lisp. So you'll learn a bunch of languages. There's a, if you're doing the mobile development class, you're going to use a Java or something like that. You're going to learn an assembly language, a machine language. So you're going to learn a bunch of languages throughout, but it's going to be first Python and then C++ and then the spread. What I would say is, don't do anything yet, because based on what the cohort looks like will dictate what we do in our classes, which will dictate what I can recommend people do. Because it's going to be different depending on, like if the entire cohort has taken APCS principles, it says one thing. If 20% took that, 20% took nothing, 20% took APCSA, it means something else. But shortly after May 1st, once everybody's committed in here, I'm going to send out a survey to get everybody's background. And then I'm going to put you all into our communication platform, and we can start having those discussions, so people will be able to, just get rolling.
I think that
In addition, right, I think it's important to remember that computer science isn't just about the language, right? Once you know the core theory, learning a new language is the easiest thing in the world. It's about the underlying concept, right, that you want to translate from one language to another. Like for me personally, right, like to learn Python by myself took me like 2 years to get good. To learn Java took me like 3 or 4 months, and to learn C++ took me like 3 or 4 weeks. The more you program, the easier it gets, and you guys will all have that experience in due time.
Thank you. I think that kind of covers the entire event. So I want to say thank you to our students. Before we part ways, there are a few different reminders that I want to remind the students who are in attendance today. One, if you like what you heard today and you think Hunter and Daedalus program specifically is what you want to make home for the next 4 years, all you have to do is make sure you commit to Hunter and reserve your seat by submitting the deposit by May 1st. That sort of solidifies your seat, right? That tells us you're coming, you're part of the program, and that way Mike will send you all the information that needs to come. You'll be part of the comp plan. You'll hear back from students. That's what kind of starts everything after May 1st. That said, you will also be hearing from academic advisors after you commit in deposit. So all that is sort of the commitment and deposit is your next step, right? If you want to start the ball rolling. That said, if you still have questions and you want to learn more about the computer science program or the Daedalus program as a whole, all you have to do is go to the accepted students page, right, the sort of on our admissions website, and click on chat with students, and it's going to take you right to our students. You can ask them questions about classes. You can talk to them about perhaps other majors or minors you're considering, right, to double major or minor in something too. So that's a good opportunity for you to chat with students and see how much homework that actually will take and how little sleep you're scheduled for. And last but not least, I would love to end this session on one of the best questions that I've seen. What advice would you give to an incoming Daedalus student in their first year? I'm going to start with students, if that okay. Layla?
Personally, my advice would be definitely get ahead of your work. Work very easily piles up on you. So back then in my first semester, I always did all my work like a week early. But then this semester, it's been kind of rough. So that's definitely my advice. Other than that, talk to your fellow cohort members, make that community. I know it's rough because of COVID, but it's definitely a lot better when you have like people to talk to.
Awesome, thank you. Moody, your advice for an incoming freshman?
Advice. So, that's a tough one. I think my advice might be kind of coming off at the opposite of Layla, right? But I think it's important to remember to, take a step back, relax, and stretch your arms out every once in a while, I think I have a pretty odd background, right? Because I came from STI, right, where our school is really academically intense. So at least for me, if you guys come from a similarly academically intense background, or from STI as well, there's bound to be one of y'all from STI in this chat. I just know it for a fact, right? But that Hunter honestly is a much better experience than STI. You know, the people I just feel like are nicer. People here are less like filled with tension. It's easier to reach out. So don't forget to reach out, hit up people. Everyone I've DM'd to have always responded to my DMs, and we've had good conversations. So just get yourself out there. You know, we're all cheering for you.
Awesome. Luca, any advice for our incoming freshmen?
Yeah, I'd say figure out what you like about coding. I think it's going to be one of the most important things, because if if you do commit to Daedalus and you do land, you're going to find yourself with a lot of support and opportunities. But if you don't really know what you want to do, it's going to be hard to take efficient advantage of all of them. So I know personally, I'm very interested in artificial intelligence, so that's how I'm gearing myself. Like your email's going to get flooded. Hey, like there's this seminar that you can go to, there's that seminar you can go to. And if you really want to, make the best use of your time, discovering what about code interests you will really allow you to take advantage of that.
Thank you. And lastly, Professor Zimanski, tell us what is your advice for an incoming freshman?
Yeah, well, first I'll say is in addition to what Irina said in terms of if you have more questions, you've all received multiple emails from me, so you should all have my email address. Please feel free to shoot anything else my way, any questions or you have. I'm happy to answer them, or also happy to redirect them to whoever can get you the answer. But the other thing, the two things I would say is, and I would also say what all of they've said, they're not in conflict. What Layla said, being on top of things allows you to relax and step back and enjoy all the other things. So I think that's all good. But also, this isn't high school, it's college, you're adults, we're adults. So use your professors, talk to your professors. One of the things that I was so happy with when we got our lounge and I got my office is we could just kind of hang out together. And, we could talk about, things from computer science, music, cooking, whatever. Professors want to hear from you. They want you to go to their office hours, not just when you have a problem, but just to get to know you. And the more you get to know their professors, your advisors, all of the players at Hunter, the better your experience is going to be. So I would say, it's no longer that you're the student and that's separate. You're just part of this community. So embrace it and reach out to people, and you'll find that faculty love that, advisors love that, your TAs love that, and it just makes it so much easier and so much more pleasurable, because again, that's how you become part of the greater community.
Thank you. Those are perfect words. Once again, for those of you who are considering, CUNY First is the way to go to accept our offer. Congratulations. This has been literally the toughest year, I feel like, for our scholar programs to make decisions, as we've got a lot of great candidates. So congratulations on being part of the Daedalus program. We're hoping to see you in our fall 2021 class. Thank you all for coming. Have an awesome day.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.